You're listening to a Countout Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Stardom Road podcast here on the Countout Podcast Network. I am your host, as always, Scott Edwards, and with me, as always, is Trent Breward. Trent, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm kind of recovering because we've just made it through one tournament. It was a long one. Not everyone made it out in one piece. And there's not much turnaround until we get to another tournament, a very timely tournament in terms of at least this episode. So just kind of trying to get my breath back. There's another pay-per-view we have to watch, but trying to get, a little bit of time to recover before we jump back into another tournament and mix things up a bit with some 2v2s this time.
Yeah, I barely made it to this podcast in one piece, so I get it. So shout out to the 5-star crew and all those that went through that grueling tournament. Obviously, hell of a run, hell of a way all around. Suzuki's your goddamn 5-star Grand Prix champion.
That makes us happy.
Yeah, hopefully she's the World of Stardom champion. And you, by the time you hear this, whether that be in a few months, a year, or hopefully you just already heard this and
4 decades she's still champion. We're all just going, Rossi, please, we it, but take the belt off.
By then I had the book. Sorry, guys.
That Bruno Sammartino reign.
Please don't do that. Anyways, today we were talking about the Goddesses of Stardom Tag League, right ahead of course, the Goddesses of Stardom Tag League, which begins.
See, we pay attention.
Yeah, we do. We sure do. I didn't know if we were going to do Tag League or not, because we did Cinderella, we did 5-star. It's right. We just wrap it all up here, right? We're not going to go through our favorite matches on a second episode. We're just bundling all that into one here because it's Tag League.
And we have plans for the rest of October.
Yeah, we have plans for the rest of October. We'll close out the year, so on and so forth. Wrestler episodes, things to look forward to. But Tag League, we're going to hit everything we would usually hit in 2 episodes on this very one. Talk about our favorite teams from all these years, and we'll have fun with it.
Yeah, it'll be a bit fun. This tournament itself has different vibes to, say, the Cinderella and the 5-star Grand Prix. And I think that in a little way kind of necessitates a little bit of a different episode from us as well. But it'll be a bit of fun. Even just looking back at this tournament, doing the research that we were doing, it's kind of, neither of us were following from the very beginning. And there's a lot of okay, they went with this option and they did this. And unlike the 5-star Grand Prix, I feel like this tournament kind of doesn't have the same definitive identity. It's kind of changed up a bit. They've experimented a few different times. So it makes for this kind of progress and looking back at its history a little bit more fun.
My favorite part about the Goddesses of Stardom Tag League is that it was the first tournament ran, not the 5-star Grand Prix, not Cinderella. Yep. Nay, it was the Goddesses of Stardom Tag League to crown.
Nene Takahashi.
She was in it. So there you go. It was to crown the first was it the first?
Yes, the first ever Goddess champions.
Yeah, it was. My apologies. I am very tired, if you couldn't tell. But the fun part of this tournament, obviously, is that there are a lot of common names throughout the history of this tournament, much more even than the 5-star Grand Prix, which we went over a few months ago. You're going to hear a lot of names that you hear in Stardom now that obviously weren't around for a couple of years after the fact. You're going to hear a lot of the legendary names that we've went through many, many times. So that'll make this a lot of fun. So I think we should just start with 2011 as we do, that's the first,
the beginning.
Back all the way beginning, I believe, on October 10th, which is a week from the time this comes out, pretty much. So that's pretty cool. How about that? Nailed it.
Maybe pause the podcast and come back to it on October 10th and then you can pretend you're back in 2011 when life was so much simpler.
So much simpler. I think one of the funny things about like when you go through the history for this tournament, some teams are missing on certain websites, and one of the teams missing on one of the websites we're using is the great team of Eri Sousa and Yu Yamagata, which was in the first tournament. They were in the first tournament. You want to hear the rest of the teams, though, because the rest of the teams...
There's a reason why that's the team that got forgotten compared to the others.
Yeah. You got Nanai Takahashi and Io Shirai. You got Arisa Shiki and Mayu Iwatani, Yuzuki Akawa and Yoko Bito, and Natsuki Tayo and Yoshiko, which is obviously just absolute home run hitters, as well as Saki Kashima and Tomoka Nakagawa. My bad. I forgot the great team. But again, I love pointing out how long ago Saki was here. I think that's one of my favorite parts of doing these tournaments. It's like, hey, Saki was around.
She's popping up here and there, and like this is obviously she came into Stardom a little bit later than the rest of the first generation. She's a 1.5er, but it's cool to see her getting the tournament rub in the first year. She's only been in the company a couple of months, and she's already getting her chance to shine. I think one of the things to mention too, which might be confusing to a lot of modern Goddess of Stardom, well, modern Stardom fans, you don't necessarily just have to be a tag league fan to notice this. I mean, if you have that niche in your fandom, fantastic. Maybe spread out to the single stuff. Don't be too scared. There's only one block here. It's not a dual block situation. It's just everyone crammed into one. Obviously, they didn't have a lot of teams to work with back then. And that's the first of many differences you'll notice as we go through this tournament.
Obviously, looking at these old tournaments, it's just like name after name together, right? You have Rookie, Risa, and Mayu, which obviously I wish we had gotten that when they weren't rookies, because it would have been amazing. Of course, we got a very special tag league team when Arisa did come back. So
Mayu Iwatani and Saki Kashima.
Yes, which is another special team. Yoko Bito and Yuzuki Akawa, like I said, were the winners. Akawa winning both the first tag league as well as the first 5-star, which says a lot about, again, the theme of this podcast has always been highlighting Yuzuki Akawa in her big spots. First Wonder champion, first Grand Prix winner, first Goddesses of Stardom tag league winner, and by default winning the tag titles as well.
It's a nice little feather in the cap from the very first ace of the company.
Yuzuki Akawa, I just love like looking back at her career, because it wasn't long, but she did so much. And she made an impact that we all still talk about her all these years later, and like that's how special a talent she was. And my only wish is she wrestled longer.
And unfortunately, that's a common theme, especially with, I think, Joshi around that era as well. Like, you did get them coming in and leaving earlier. I think in the current day, it's a little bit easier to make it a long-term career. The options are there, and there's maybe less expectation that you hit a certain age and then marry yourself off and go and live a normal life as opposed to the ring life. We're getting more veterans in the industry, more consistent veterans. But it would have been interesting if you take an Aikawa and sort of pop her into like a 2023 situation. If she was in that same debut class as like a Hanako and Aya Sakura, and see like what could have been with that kind of progress. Obviously, coming in and being the star from the start for Stardom brings with certain values, and maybe she's not winning all these tournaments and titles straight away. But it's kind of, it's an interesting thought experiment.
You just said the star from the start of Stardom. Yes. Clean. And I applaud you for that.
And now that you've made attention to my ability to say things cleanly, I'm going to butcher everything. Simple sentences will not come out properly.
Thank you. You're welcome. But with
I'm going to say G1 like I always do.
You're going to start saying World Tag League. But let's move to 2012, because like we said, and the fun other theme of Goddesses in history is that they've changed through history. Like the way it is done. For the first one, you get that first single block. The second year, you go to the 2-block strategy, which obviously is a big deal. And I think you'll notice like just how willingly creative they were with this tournament. Like they were willing to change it up as time went on, which I always think is just appreciate, because I think if you ever dive into the history of Stardom and watch through these tournaments, you'll have an experience each time. But if you do that, let me know how it was, because it's a lot of matches.
It's a lot of matches, and classic sort of early Stardom is, as we've mentioned plenty of times on this podcast, it's difficult to get your hands on. And the Goddess tournaments are no exception. The easiest way really is to find the old DVDs that they produced, because they tend to compile everything together too. So that's kind of a benefit. But yeah, it's fun to see them experiment a bit, because especially the 5-Star Grand Prix, like that kind of came in fully formed in a lot of ways. They made minor changes, like changing the size of the blocks, changing the length of the matches and stuff. But for the most part, the 5-Star Grand Prix has remained the 5-Star Grand Prix. The Goddess blocks, first couple of years, they're trying a bit of everything, and it's understandable. Like obviously in the span of a year they're able to field a lot more teams, and just they're finding the groove of what makes this tournament special.
So the 2012 tournament went as followed. Kairi Hojo and Natsumi Suzuki won their block. Nanae Takahashi and Miho Wakazawa tied technically, but they did not have the tiebreaker. Kyoko Kimura and Christina Von Eerie, as well as Saki Kashima and Act Yasukawa. That's a fun team sitting there at the bottom. Then we had Eri Sousa, our friend, and Nozomi coming in at the bottom of the opposite block. We had a young Thunder Rock duo of Io Shirai and Mayu Iwatani. You had Yuzuki Aikawa and Yuhi, and then the eventual winners of the entire tournament, finalists from the previous year, Natsuki Tayo and Yoshiko, getting that victory.
Imagine, like in 2023, telling someone, "Oh yes, Io Shirai and Mayu Iwatani teamed together in a tag league tournament, and they won one match." Now, obviously, a lot of context is required there, but it's just wild to think now, over a decade later, that pairing and the pairing that we would go on to see dominate in a lot of ways. They only managed the one win in this tournament.
I think it's even more stunning, though, when you highlight the idea that Kairi got to the finals with Natsumi Suzuki, because it's just like, what? It's like if you say that to someone new, they're gonna be like, excuse me? What'd you say? But I think that's
it highlights that Kairi was pushed pretty well early on. Obviously it took her a few years to really find her groove, but like they saw a lot of potential in her very early on.
Yes, they did. And I think when it comes to these tournaments, if you want to go back and watch them, you can see just a lot of growth from the wrestlers, because as I talked about heading into last year's tournament, specifically with Miyu Amasaki, I think these tournaments are so great for the younger talent, because they're able to work with someone to help them, guide them, and they come out of the other side better wrestlers, rather than putting them in like the Grand Prix. Unlike a Hanan, who she had experience, she finally gets into a Grand Prix, and now she gets more experience from that. When you're a rookie, these benefit you so much, and I think that's why I do look forward to these tournaments, even if most people most people just want like the 4 or 5 star classics at this point, but you get to see that growth. And going back in history, you get to see the growth of some of the best wrestlers in the world, some of the best wrestlers ever, by watching these tournaments. And I think that is one of my favorite parts of it.
It's all about protected stakes. And in a lot of ways, that's what makes the future of Stardom Championship and New Blood really valuable, is because you're trying to find the balance between giving people reps, just chucking them on undercard matches and whatnot, and giving them matches with stakes where there's a little bit more pressure to perform. Because if all you ever do is just your opening card tag matches where there's 8 people in the ring and you can kind of hide and stuff, there's only so much you can really grow and prove yourself. But when you get asked to, this is a match where more eyes will be on you, there's more importance, there's more at stake. That's when you kind of get the make or break moments. And I think the perfect example is someone like Ruaka, who teaming with Natsuko Tora last year, you really saw that growth in her. And it is a shame in 2023, obviously with the spat of injuries we've had, she's sort of the odd woman out. She's had to sit out of this tournament with the teams that got reshuffled because I do think she would have benefited a lot from being able to learn once more with with Momo Watanabe, who would have been a fantastic learning point. She's had Natsuko Tora, she's had Nanai Takahashi working closely with her, and like that combination of three people, I think it was setting her up nicely. Obviously, she's still got two great ones, but you see someone like Ruaka, Miyu Hamasaki this year with Hanako as well. That should be a really encouraging situation for her. It's a tournament that requires more bodies, and that can bring its benefits, especially in the long term.
It sure can, and I think again that's something interesting. And as you hear the teams as we continue, you'll see like a case of that as they go on to be better. Thunder Rock, of course, being a good example in this tournament. I hear they turned out pretty well.
They did a couple of things.
2013 switched to a bracket style tournament, which I think is obviously very interesting because we don't do much brackets. It's a lot of point-based systems, but the bracket was as follows. You had the first round matchup, Kyoko Kimura and Aki Asakawa facing Kaori Yoneyama and Yuhi. And another first round matchup was Io Shirai and Takumi Iroha teaming up to face Nai Takahashi and Kairi Hojo, who obviously would go on to greatness as a duo. Natsuki Tayo and Yoshiko once again back together for the third straight year.
If it works, don't fix it.
Exactly. You had Dash Sasako and Sendai Sachiko together in this tournament, which I think is pretty cool. Mayu Utani and Miho Wakazawa together, as well as Alpha Female and Female Predator, who I believe goes by Amazon now. For those
she does
would like to be known, I think she wrestles in Seed like mostly. So if you want to know who she was, the tournament will go as followed. Kyoko Kimura and Aki Asakawa would advance against Kaori Yoneyama and Yuhi. They would take on the team of Nanai Takahashi and Kairi Hojo. If there was a match you wanted to go find from this tournament, that might be one of them, because they're pretty good. Those are two top premier teams, especially back then. And then we had Natsuki Tayo and Yoshiko shockingly advancing. I know, I'm shocked too. They took on Alpha Female and Female Predator, and in the final, it ended up being Kyoko and Act winning the tournament, defeating Alpha Female and Female Predator.
Can we just take a quick moment to appreciate the first three teammates that Io Shirai's had here? Nanai Takahashi, Mayu Iwatani, Takumi Iroha. Now, if that's not like just great GM picking, like if Io's got any say in who she's teaming with, she's doing pretty well for herself.
She lost all three of them.
But the idea is really sound.
See, to me, I think she should have realized she should probably stick with a team and create chemistry. That was her problem. That's why it took her a little bit longer to find success the next year.
But you do see this a lot in the tournament too. Like you see, like, even though Stardom have a lot of established teams over the years, they're not afraid in this tournament to go, we're going to mix things up.
I mean, we saw it this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before things got scrambled, Uedo Tai was all different.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are shocked because of it. You see it throughout history, and
Donna Del Mondo especially too.
Yes, we'll keep doing that, but I do like that you highlighted the Io one, because that is a hitter's row of just greatness. And I'll just tell you all now, Io didn't have a tough time after that in her tournament partners. Kyoko Kimura and Aki Asakawa, obviously a very special duo. They created the ground up for a very special faction that some of you may have heard of. I don't know. Just saying. I'm not going to tell them. I'm not going to tell the people. No. I'm just saying.
See if you can piece together the puzzle.
Yes, but what I love about this tournament it's just so simple. Like I like brackets. I love round robin tournaments. I always will. But I think now that we live in a world where Triangle Derby and Tag League exist, it wouldn't be a bad idea to make one of them a bracket style, just to change it up. Because obviously you have a bracket style with Cinderella, 5 stars your round robin, kind of be a similar type thing. I think maybe Triangle Derby would benefit maybe from being the bracket style. Since it's newer, you can change that easier.
And the bracket it's like college sports. So I don't know about college football, but especially college basketball with the March Madness. Part of the allure is like one match to advance, and you get these critical moments where someone surprises the field, and especially with a tag team or a Triangle Derby situation, you've got that kind of one person who might have to carry a bit or be exposed, and they have to survive through it. It creates some fascinating storylines. Sort of speeds up the tournament too, which I think the Triangle Derby going for 2 months maybe was a bit long in its initial year. We'll see what goes on in the future. But like the Cinderella tournament, I think is a great example of using a bracket format to great effect. And it's kind of cool seeing the Goddess of Stardom Tag League kind of experiment with that as well.
Yes, exactly. And I think, again, from Stardom's history, you can always lean on certain things. For history, they did go to the bracket again later on. So let's dive in now to 2014, the 2014 tournament to crown the Tag League final winner. I believe in the final, the tag titles were on the line as the champions actually won the tournament, as it was Kairi Hojo and Nanai Takahashi taking this one home. Obviously, in recent years, if you are a Stardom fan, you have got a little taste of that duo together before Kairi, went on her hiatus. But even her final match gave you a little bit of that as well. The blocks were as followed. You had Io Shirai and Mayu Iwatani, Thunder Rock, winning their first block as a duo. Starfire and Mystique had 4 points. Miho Wakazawa and Koguma had 2. And Kairi Yoneyama and Hatsushinode Kamen, also known as Aya Watanabe, which I think many will probably know her by more from her time in Wave in Ice Ribbon, question mark.
Dot.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me. I'm not going to lie to you.
You don't have Ice Ribbon information lined up in this Stardom history podcast.
She did have 2 matches in Ice Ribbon, so technically I wasn't wrong. but it was YMZ she wrestled in her final year, which of course is Kaori's promotion.
It's very fitting that that's kind of the connection point.
Yes, I guess I shouldn't be shocked. And on the other side, you had Nanai Takahashi and Kairi Hojo, of course, who went on to win the tournament. Takumi Aroha and Risa Serra. What I would do for that team now. That I think a lot of people would be feeling a different way about Tag League right now if that was the duo. You have Yoshiko and Ryo Hazuki.
Just drop the Ryo.
Yeah. And Kyoko Kimura and Chris Wolf coming in last.
Yes. Hopefully you listened to our last episode and you'll know all about Chris Wolf.
But if you didn't, you should go on your way to listen to that on any podcast form. I'm hoping if you hear this, you know how to do that. But if you're not, if you don't know how to do that, you go on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get your podcast and listen to our episode about the wonderful Chris Wolf. Thank you. Cheap plug. But yes, the final was the title match, like I said, with Hojo and Nanai successfully defending against Thunder Rock.
It's nice seeing the champion or champions in this situation win a tournament. Like, I know part of the allure is you set up
to win. Okay.
Of course. Part of the allure is setting up future challenges and stuff. But the reality is, like any tournament like this, a champion should really be the favorite. And often they're not, because you kind of meta game the situation. Oh, they're not going to win because that's
first
not
Triangle
the point.
Derby, baby.
Exactly. It's kind of fun to see these situations a little bit more. A team like Nanai Takahashi and Kairi Hojo, they're probably going to win a tournament, even as champions. Makes the booking in the future a little bit more complicated, but it's fun to actually kind of just remind people this is possible.
You know what would be interesting?
What would be interesting, Scott?
If you get, this is just now, this isn't even Goddesses talk. This is just overall tournament talk now. If you had the champions go to the final, they defend the titles and they simply lose.
And just lose the title, lose the tournament.
Yeah, like that would be a good change up too.
Yeah.
They
had a hell of a moment.
Yeah, they could have lost here. They didn't, but they could have, is my point. But yeah, I just want to just tossing it out there, you know.
It'd be an interesting heel move because, especially with the 5-star Grand Prix the last couple of times, we've seen like someone in the finals who didn't really have to wrestle that hard on that night while the other person did. Could you imagine like a heel kind of getting the Suzu Momo situation and the champion going through a grueling match to make the final and they're rested and sort of say, hey, you know, woman up and put your title on the line as well. Let's make this interesting.
That'd be pretty funny. I think that'd be good. I would like that.
Excuse us, just fantasy booking.
Yeah, no, just let us have fun. It's our podcast, okay?
And one of the teams is Takumi Iroha and Risa Sera coming back, and the other one is Mayu Iwatani and Risa Hoshiki. We're not being crazy here.
No. Thunder Rock has probably a very much better chance than both of those, by the way. And as we were recording, mind you, Io Shirai is WWE Women's World Champion. So if that doesn't really knock home how much I believe in the other two, I don't know what will. But yes, let's roll on here, shall we? No? Yes?
Oh, no. I thought that was a rhetorical question.
No, it was rhetorical. I mean, you could have said no. You know,
well, I feel like the point of the podcast is for us to continue. I'd hate to kind of end it halfway through analyzing this tournament.
That'd be pretty funny, actually.
It's not.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Thanks for the 26 minutes.
We're not coming back to cover the second half next episode. We just decided to stop it there.
No, it was a good run. Anyways,
it was an okay run.
Yeah, whatever. Shut up.
It's a podcast. I legally can't.
On the 2015, back to the tournament bracket style. We had Io Shirai and Mayu Iwatani versus Kaori Oniyama and Alex Lee, Kairi Hojo and Haruka Kato, not Neko, Kato, just for anyone wondering, against Aki Asakawa and Holly Dead, Momo Watanabe and Datora, Hiromi Mimura, which we will talk about more on this show, and Starlight Kid. Yes, 2015, folks. Starlight Kid, intern.
Who's someone we haven't talked about much on this podcast yet?
Starlight Kid?
Yeah.
It's almost like she's 21 years old.
But she's been here a while.
She has. Well, we talk about like everyone else that's been here a while. I don't think we ever talk about Kid. Like we're like Azumi, you know, she's been here for a decade. Happy 10th anniversary, by the way, to Azumi. You know, we talk about Sahi Kashima. She was in and out. Starlight Kid's like, you know.
To be fair, she's wearing a mask. It's easy to confuse her.
Anyways, we move along here. The other two teams were Kyoko Kora and Chris Wolf, and Satana Garrett and Hiroya Matsumoto. That team's just on paper just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
And I love seeing Hiroya Matsumoto in Stardom around this time. She brought a lot to the table, I thought.
Yes, she did. Hiroya Matsumoto has been such a strong wrestler for such a strong like for years.
Yeah,
like she's been a benefit to whoever has her. And her time in Stardom, if you go out of your way to find it on Stardom World, do so, because it's just a lot of good matches. You know, she was key part of Stardom for a while there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you needed that kind of person around that time, that sort of solid veteran hand, especially around, you know, this and the next couple of years, because there's a young learning roster. And she was someone that could kind of give them that guiding hand. And I'm not biased because, you know, her success led to a lot of Jungle Kiona success, but it's a nice byproduct.
You bias? Never.
pot.
Anyways,
the kettle black.
Thunder Rock went all the way to the final due to a draw between Hojo, Kato, and Yasukawa and Holidead. So, moving forward here. Sorry, wait a minute. Time out. Yes, I'm making sure I got that right.
They won their first round matchup and then got a bye in the second round.
Yes, so they went all the way to the finals. Mind you, they are the reigning Goddesses of Stardom champions at this time. Thunder Rock is on their powerful, unstoppable run as champions. It may give away how this ends. And then Santana Garrett and Hiroyo Matsumoto advanced to the finals by beating Momo Watanabe and Datura.
Yeah. And I think, like, you're looking at this particular tournament, there's a lot of interesting little pairings and stuff. I think this is the right final to run in this circumstance. It's probably it is the two strongest teams here. And especially when you're building and establishing the Threedom, but particularly Thunder Rock in this situation, giving them a team like that in the final is a fine way to sort of just continue to grow their strength.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was that same month that Santana Garrett would go on to become Wonder of Stardom champion.
There you go.
So, obviously, a very strong build for her to that point through Tag League. But before Thunder Rock, Io Shirai, and Mayu Iwatani would get the win, which is, it was bound to happen. And
they couldn't do it in the block tournaments. They had to settle.
Important, she beat Io Shirai to win the title.
Yep.
So, she may have lost the Tag League final. She didn't get the tag belts there, but she did go on to defeat Io Shirai. Pretty big deal, if I'd say so myself.
Relatively big deal, yes.
Mandy Leon also beat Io Shirai, though. So maybe it wasn't as big of a deal as we think it is.
Did she win by pinfall or submission?
I have no idea. I never watched that match. That was a good one. You thought you were good. I have no idea. I can't believe you just questioned me on that. Anyways, 2016, the continuation of great teams goes on. I will give a spoiler alert here. The finals was not for the Goddesses of Stardom championships. We finally got a change up here. But the teams here are very intriguing, I think. I think you have some really fun teams in terms of Yoko Bito and Kairi Hojo, who, spoiler alert, went on to win. You have Chelsea Green and Santana Garrett, which, of course, Chelsea Green is, I believe, WWE Women's Tag Team Champions right now. Look at, she got the experience, baby.
She couldn't have done it without this tournament.
And she's teaming with former Stardom wrestler Viper to do so. So how about them apples?
The world comes together.
Hiromi Mimura and reigning Goddess of Stardom champion Sayori No. Not back then, now. Holidead and Thunder Rosa. Io Shirai, Mayu Iwatani, you may have heard of them. Jungle Kiona and Momo Watanabe, which, of course, we love that duo.
JK Green.
Kagetsu and Chris Wolf, and then Casey Owens and Leah Owens.
Yeah. It's you're starting to see some more familiar teams, at least for me. Like, this is sort of when I was starting to follow through. And I remember, like, the Thunder Rosa Holidead pairing quite strongly. Obviously, you got Thunder Rock, the Owens twins. JK Green was fantastic. And Bito and Kairi is kind of the pairing. Like, obviously, I picture Thunder Rock together.
JK Green? Who's JK Green?
Yeah.
Who is that?
I thought it was JK Green. Well, they add an E every time they win a match. So at this point, they were just JK Green, and then they started to win some matches and add some E's on. And thankfully, they never had a dominant tag title run because, we'd be here all day.
This marks the third straight year for Thunder Rock in the finals. It also marked the final time we'd see Thunder Rock in the tournament together, which is very sad to think about. But hey, what a run. You made the comment, Io was picking all these partners. Yeah, she finally settled on one, and it worked out pretty well for her.
Yeah, until she got a bit pissy.
Well, that happens to poor Mayu, unfortunately. I believe so. The blocks ended as followed: Kairi Hojo and Yoko Bito winning their block, Holly Den and Thunder Rosa finishing second, Chelsea Green and Satana Garrett finishing third, and Hiromi Mora and Sarah No with 1 point finishing last. Now on the red block side, you had Io Shirai and Mayu Iwatani with 5 points, Casey Owens and Leah Owens with 3, just like you drew it up. Jungle Kiona and Momo Watanabe with 2, and then Kagetsu and Chris Wolf with 2.
Yeah, and this is the first example of a multiple-time winners. Kairi Hojo, Yoko Bito, neither of them are one with their original partners in this situation, but this is both their second times winning the tournament respectively. And there's a couple of examples, but they're the two first they're the first two to get on the board in that respect.
If you're listening now before we get there, trivia yourself. Who are the other two? I'll never be able to tell you if you're right or wrong, but ask yourself anyways.
I trust our listeners. I reckon they're pretty smart.
I think they're pretty easy to get.
Yeah. I think this tournament, especially if you've been watching a couple of years, you can probably start to piece it together.
Exactly. See? Yeah, you're right. I believe in the listeners. I believe that if you're listening to this podcast, you're very smart people. You're obviously great. You make great choices. I'm sure you'll make great choices in your predictions as well.
I believe in our listeners more than I believe in the hosts.
Mean. Anyways, and also watch that final if you have a chance to.
Yes.
It's a great final. It is a great final. I loved the team. Obviously, I love Thunder Rock, but I love Yoko and Kairi together. I thought they were phenomenal.
They brought out the best in each other, and it was fun to see Bito kind of getting that shining role at this point in time. Obviously, she like a lot of wrestlers had the little two stoppers in Stardom. She came in, left for a bit, came back. But I think sort of teaming with Kairi was really kind of, obviously she won the Wonder of Stardom belt, but I think this is kind of when you really got to see her at her best.
Kairi, pretty good. That is what you just said. For those wondering, they would go on to win the titles in their challenge. So I probably should have said that for all the other ones we went through, but it helped that most of them, the title was on the line.
yeah, it makes it a bit easier, but it also makes the ones we didn't do for stand out a bit more.
Yes, and Kairi was Wonder Champion at this time as well. They went on to defeat Kagetsu and Kyoko Kimura for the belts.
Yes,
at the Aaron Climax that year. So again, if you want to kind of play with the history here, now the winner of the tournament oftentimes goes to the final show, which is Dream Queendom, based off the 5-star Grand Prix this year. I'm not going to assume anything.
Yeah, we don't make bold claims there, do we?
So the 2017 tournament again featured another change up. This time, the teams faced the other teams in the other blocks, which is similar to what the Triangle Derby did this year, for example. So obviously that is a big change, very hard to track. As someone who tracked the Triangle Derby this year, it's kind of a pain to be like, what makes sense here?
Yeah, it's an interesting move because it's just always assumed if you're running these kind of tournament blocks that it's just you fight within your block and you advance. So it creates a different dynamic, and there's some stories you can tell using this format. It does kind of feel a little needlessly complicated, like just throwing in an extra spanner in the works at times. But I guess if you want to sort of set up certain matchups, this is one way to go about it without sort of forcing everyone into one block.
Yes.
And again, for Goddess Tournament, we've seen them experiment a bit with the style already. This is just another way to go about it, really.
So the 2017 blocks were as followed. You had Azumi and Starlight Kid. I think we'd all love to see that in a future tournament. Now that they got to do the Dream Tag Festival together and were fantastic together. You had Jungle Kiona and Yoko Bito, Hazuki and Io Shirai, and Bea Priestley and Kelly Klein on one side. I'm going to play a game after this. We had Hana Kimura and Kagetsu, Hiromi Momura and Konami, Chardonnay and Scarlet, and Natsuko Tora, her first appearance here in the tournament, and Shiki Shibusawa.
Yes.
So let's play a game, folks. What team do you think won? If you guessed Bea Priestley and Kelly Klein, you would be correct.
Yeah, well, we trust our viewers or listeners to be able to pick the double winners. I wouldn't expect our listeners to pick this one unless they already knew.
Yeah, so obviously the tournaments were all crazy because they're in different
intertwined
blocks and stuff, and a headache to think about as I look at it personally. So the final ultimately was Bea Priestley and Kelly Klein versus Jungle Kiona and Yoko Bito.
Mm-hmm.
So take that for what you will. And I think
win.
Classic. Mike is getting used to that. What, am I wrong? Am I wrong? She's lost Tag League before.
And she's lost other tournaments as well.
Yeah, at least she got to the finals, unlike Jungle, though. I'm sorry. Bea Priestley and Kelly Klein did not win their title challenge, by the way. I know you were concerned, but I will say this does play part to the big time push of Bea Priestley in Stardom, obviously. Yep. Because she was someone who came onto the scene, made a name for herself in Stardom very quickly. And like I said, they were able to win the final. They challenged Hana Kimura and Kagetsu. So you're damn right they lost.
I don't want to say the right team won, but the right team won.
You can say the right team won, because everyone listening knows that the right team won once we say the two teams. Anyways, now we get to 2018, and I think this is where a lot of familiarity will come in for people listening. There are a lot of big names here that are currently still wrestling in Stardom, and I think there's a lot of history here in terms of kind of where certain wrestlers would go on towards. So you had an intriguing final duo of Momo Watanabe and Utami Hayashishita, which we'll dive into in a few minutes here, because understanding Utami's 2018 run is the most important part of anything. Momo Watanabe was doing pretty good back then too, I hear.
Oh yeah. This is really the peak of the Momo run.
Yeah. This is like Momo ain't losing, buddy.
Yeah.
Another Wonder Farm champion winning this tournament. Fun little.
How the peaches have fallen.
At least she won a tournament, multiple tournaments, unlike Jungle Kiona.
Steady on, mate.
Steady on. We had Hana Kimura and Mary Apache, Mayu Utani and Saki Kashima, Natsumi and Starlight Kid, Kiri Oniyama and Ruaka, and Hanan and Leo Onizaki, which is, of course, a favorite of many in her very short career. Big time winner that Leo was.
Hey, she made it to Queen's Quest. That's something.
That's true. And finalists on the other side were, again, Bea Priestley. This time with Chardonnay.
Yeah.
She can just team with anyone.
She's a tag team specialist, and this isn't the only time she makes the final either.
She is, yeah. Name her tag team partner in WWE. I don't think she has one. Anyways.
Name her name in WWE.
Blair Davenport. Boom.
There we go.
We had Hazuki and Kagetsu. Finished with 6 points. Jungle Kiona and Natsuko Tora finished with 5. Martina and Natsu Sumire with 4. Azumi and Konami with 4. Shiki Shibusawa and Tam Nakano making her first appearance in the tournament at 3 points.
And this is sort of, again, like talking about the evolution of the tournament. Not only is this kind of when you'll see a lot of people start to go, oh, yes, I recognize these names, I recognize these teams. The size of the tournament, too. Like, this is bumped up from the usual 4 or 5, teams in one area. We've got 6 in each block, so it's quite a full one. And it gets that range. You're seeing Leo Onozaki, Ruaka at this point, the youngsters. Shiki Shibusawa is still very sort of fresh in this situation as well. With the bigger blocks, you're starting to see what we're talking about more and more. We're getting opportunities and some interesting pairings and stuff.
I like to point out sometimes like where the final is.
Mm-hmm.
So because it was 5 years ago, so it's recent enough. This was in Fukuoka. That's a shame. I could make another Micah joke, but I'm not gonna.
Why are we
Hazuki
going in
lost.
on Micah today?
Hazuki lost, by the way.
Yeah.
Tough. Fukuoka, just a tough place to wrestle.
She normally does pretty well there.
Yeah. She does. Also, so there's 330 people in attendance. Obviously, big change within 5 years to what we have for a final in the 5-star. Not the 5-star. See, I was going to mess up.
Any tournament.
Definitely the 5-star. The 5-star definitely gets more with the Goddesses of Stardom tournament. So Momo and Utami, obviously, big time duo there. One of the most dominant duos to ever win the tournament in that time. Of course, Utami was on her big rookie run, and Momo Watanabe was on her Wonder of Stardom title run. Yep. Just unbelievable forces. And you were watching by then.
Yes. I was this is sort of when I was truly locked in, I would say.
When they announced that team, did you just assume they were winning?
Very much so. Yeah. Because by this point, we'd already seen Utami make it to the final of the 5-star Grand Prix. And it was very clear, her initial push wasn't just kind of like hey, we've got a new toy, let's sort of showcase her. It's like, we believe in this person and you are going to realize how good she is. And obviously, pairing her with someone like Momo, who at this point has really found her groove, found what makes her tick, was a good chance for her to learn as well.
I almost said to you right now, imagine if they ever did that with someone again. The closest we're ever going to get to that is one Suzu Suzuki, who just did it. But then she won. She won.
Yeah. The difference is, though, Suzu obviously had several years in wrestling prior. Utami didn't wrestle for years in Wave and Ice Ribbon and Prominence. She came from her home, came from being Big Daddy's kid. And trained, got back and got into the ring very quickly after her training and just went on a tear, which the time that it took for her to get this good is part of what makes this debut year of hers so phenomenal. For as much as people were like, oh, they're pushing her so hard so fast just because she's a minor celebrity, she belonged in the ring. She was every bit as good as you'd want someone in that position to be.
It's hard, but I think it's fun to point this out because I do think we're kind of in the year of rookies for Joshi right now. There's a lot of great rookies around the scene. Obviously, New Blood just happened with Azusa and Naba, who I think is if you ever seen Tomoki Naba when she was new, it is not even close. Azusa has the cheat code, obviously, of learning from her sister, but it's I don't know. I don't think we'll ever see something like the big rookie again in Stardom because of where Stardom is now compared to back then. I don't think I don't think Hanako's going to run the gauntlet here. So.
Hey, you never know. You may have just made a fool out of yourselves when she's won the tag.
You know what? I hope I did. I hope just something goes crazy and she wins the whole thing. Maybe it's time for her beast run.
Well, say Ida's finding her groove as a tag wrestler right now.
She is. She is a champion, which makes it very funny that they are not duo. But I got Mayu and Hanan together, so alas, I won. 2019. Tell me if you heard this one before. Being Priestley made the finals.
Yeah,
that is 3 years in a row. 3 different tag team partners, folks. Incredible. This time was with very popular Jamie Hayter. And not only did they get to the finals, they won by 4 points. They won their block by 4 points, folks. The other teams were as followed: Momo Watanabe and Azumi, Riho and Starlight Kid, Natsuko Tora and Hazuki, Jogo Kiona and Konami, and Mayu Utami.
Who were the champions at this stage?
Saki Kashima, yes, which is pretty crazy that they finished so low. Poor Jungle. Just poor Jungle. Can't even say
I mean,
anything
it
about
is actually
This guy.
crazy that she was in this tournament because she was injured and she came back pretty early to make this tournament. And unfortunately, like Jungle Kiona being injured,
That
started
might
to
have been
become
a bad choice.
Yeah, maybe should have sat this one out, but that's not for me to speak, and that is hindsight is 2020. It's not the first time she came back quickly from injury either.
On the other side of the tournament, we had Saya Ida and Saya Kamatani.
Yay!
Natsu
I like them
Sumire.
as a team. I miss them as a team.
Well, maybe you'll get it again someday.
Yeah.
You know, they're clearly the same level of growth. You know, Natsu Sumire and Session Mat Martina.
One of them's a champion right now, the other's not. That's all I'm saying.
Neither of Natsu and Martina. Actually, Martina could be a champion. I couldn't tell you. I know you met Ida and Kamatani, though. You know what? Low blow. Low blow. Kamatani's injured. Have some respect.
All the respect you're giving to the other injured person we were just talking about.
It's okay. She's probably going to Dream Queen the main event at this point. If she's not, she's going to get a world title match eventually.
Yeah.
Andras Miyagi and Kagetsu were recently returned. Yes. Andras Miyagi as Michiko, of course, but I think that's an incredible timing. You have Bobby Tyler and Zoe Lucas, Hana Kimura and Death Yamasan, and maybe the most favorite thrown together team in Stardom history, and that is, as we know now, best friends in real life, Arisa Shiki and Tam Nakano. Dream Shine. Who doesn't love Dream Shine? I think everyone loves Dream Shine, truthfully.
The only people who don't love Dream Shine are the people who haven't seen Dream Shine.
I think you're going to say the people that we can't trust, because I wouldn't agree. Dream
if you
Shine.
haven't seen Dream Shine, we can't trust you.
Dream Shine would go on to win their match. Their final over Bea Priestley and Jamie Hayter, which again, obviously a big deal, but they would not successfully win the titles. And that's another Wonder of Stardom champion in the finals and winning, by the way. I should have counted these because there's a lot. What a weird thing. Wait, who's the Mirai and Mai Sakurai might win, guys?
You heard it here first.
Just a warning, just giving you an idea. But they did lose their challenge to Jungle Kiona and Konami. And
finally get to talk about a Jungle victory.
Not really, because it's not really part of what we're talking about. But yeah, I'll give it to you. No offense to you, but it is a shame that Dream Shine didn't get the title run.
Yeah, no, look, as one of the biggest Jungle fans out there, I was utterly shocked that they didn't win the titles here, because everything had been built up in such a way. It felt like they were going to that story. And I guess maybe because Arisa was the Wonder of Stardom champion, and not that stopped them from doing double champs in the past, but it does make booking difficult when you're trying to run, shows with multiple championships. But it was a real shame, because Dream Shine really is one of maybe the most popular teams Stardom have put together, full stop. Whether it's throw together, whether it's kind of long term. They weren't together for long, but they just had this magnetic chemistry, and the story surrounding them was just told wonderfully.
It is the reason we have Tamlor.
Yes.
That feud, that relationship is the reason we still deal with Tamlor today.
It's why this podcast is called Stardom Road.
Because Arisa got hurt and she never got to finish the damn story. Shout out Cody Rhodes, who also has never finished the damn story. Hopefully he does.
That's going to be relevant regardless of when you listen to this podcast.
So she had to create the Tam Road and Tam lore, and it'll never end. But I will say, my favorite part about Dream Shine is anytime we get past couple of years, we got a picture of them together. Really would like one of those sometime soon, because as one of the many Arisa fans, just want to know she's doing well,
Yeah, and we hope for the best. We talked about it, I think, in her podcast series that we did earlier in this run. Such a magnetic figure, and every little bit of joy that we got from her, just you hold on to it, because there wasn't a lot of chances, but she maximized that.
They did. Yeah, she did. And again, we hope that she's having a great time out there. And we did love that that duo. Just a fantastic duo. If you want to go back and just have a great time, go watch Dream Shine.
Here's a fun question for you that we didn't at all plan, but it just struck me.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Which Arisa pairing would you rather see again from this tournament? Arisa and Mayu or Arisa and Tam?
Oh, Arisa and Mayu, 1,000%. Those
really?
Those are my two favorite Stardom wrestlers of all time.
But it's the Dream Shine team.
Yeah, but I see enough of Tam. Tam and Natsupoi are cool. You know, I don't know if like that even was a possibility. I still probably wouldn't think much about it. But it's a good question. It's a good question. But Dream Shine, like they got their run. I want to see Mayu and Arisa at their best get their run. You know,
see, I'd rather face each other.
Well, that too. You know,
if I had to pick, I'd rather see Dream Shine team together and Arisa and Mayu fight each other.
You would absolutely get the opposite. Like if that was a possible reality, you would 100% get the opposite.
To be fair, what would happen is Arisa would get paired with Aya Sakura in the Goddess of Stardom Tag tournament.
If that might be great. If we can build
would be great.
If we can build a second Arisa Ishiki at Aya Sakura, we are in a good world.
First move, dye her costume.
Yeah, well, that's easy. Man, if Arisa ever walked back in the door, which obviously she can't because she's hurt, that would be like instant match for Tam.
Oh yeah,
that'd be like the first match.
Yeah,
because I think if you're Stardom, you'd be like, all right, we just made sure we got this match. That's all we needed, you know.
And I'd hope she'd try and join Cosmic Angels like she did with Stars. Natsupoi welcomes her. Tam's like, no, not this again.
No, please no. Yeah, you think I have problems with Mayu? Oh. You know why I am this way? There we go. Booking again. Anyways, let's get to the 2020 tournament. 2020 tournament's the first one I saw in full.
Oh, nice.
Which was great because the team I wanted to win won. It just happened to happen. They end up winning the tag titles after the fact, which again, criminal decision.
Another kind of surprising decision, though not as surprising as the previous years.
Yeah, it broke me a little bit because they went to the finals the year after and then didn't win them. And then Momo had to get a chair and smash Azumi's brain to smithereens. And
spoiler on who we're talking about there.
Yeah. Anyways, let's talk about the teams. We had Azumi and Momo Watanabe. Of course, Momo Az, Momo AZ, whichever you prefer. I don't know what the correct saying is. I'm not going to lie to you. I've heard multiple on every podcast. I call them Momo Az, but because it's Azumi, it's not AZM.
What's your source there? I have it from a very credible money maker that it's AZM.
That's good. I applaud you on that one. You had Bea Priestley and Konami just 1 point off of that final, as you'd expect with Bea Priestley. You had Himeka and Shuri, Goki Death and Riho. Just a wild duo there. Mina Shirakawa and Tam Nakano. And then on the other side, you had Julia and Maika. Maika lost in the final. Sayaka Utani and Utami Hayashishita, they're pretty good. Mayu Utani's MK Sisters too. They really just took away all the teams I love. MK Sisters and Momoaz were my teams, and they destroyed them both in the same year. At least I will say I got MK Sisters one time at Wrestle Kingdom. That was pretty cool.
It was pretty good.
Because they just were like, we're just going to be the MK Sisters for this. Oh, cool.
Yeah, we're not going to actively hate each other like we have been.
Natsuko Tora and Saki Kashima, obviously always a lovely team. And Hanan and Saida, the reigning New Blood Tag Team Champions of the world, baby. It all started in 2020. Look at them now.
Wingori are good. Like, they're just a fun team.
I haven't watched the New Blood match that they actually won the titles in yet, but I heard it was really fun. So, and I'm sure I'm going to have a big smile on my face because how do you not get happy about Saida and Hanan winning titles? I mean, come on.
Exactly.
It's like,
you just have to look at the response like online when, like, obviously it wasn't broadcast live.
It didn't matter. It was like a collective.
Everyone
like
was just so happy.
I think it was more for Ida because like we know Hanen's gonna be fine.
Yeah, them as a team, like it's always been a fun team, but they've never really gone anywhere with it. Obviously,
especially
because
Tag League was announced too.
Yeah,
and they weren't together, so it's like it's nice to see them get their moment.
For sure.
Speaking of getting their moment, Azumi and Momo would go on to win this tournament, defeating Julia and Micah in the final, which is wonderful. We love to see it, but they did not win their title match.
But they did get something very special for the very first time in the Goddess of Stardom Tag League. They got rings. And I love this addition to the Goddess lore. It's not just, hey, we've won a tournament and we get like the trophy that they always get and then we challenge for the title. The rings are just like a very clever way of going about, here's an award. You know, the 5-Star Grand Prix, you get the crown and cape. The Cinderella tournament, you get the dress, and now you get the little shoe statue. Triangle Derby, you get the flag. And with this tag league, you get the rings, the 2 rings that each person wears. And that's, love it. Such a smart addition.
I always love rings because as a big sports fan, teams get rings when they win championships. It's so simple.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
And they're well designed too. I like the design of them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could have bought one last year. I think they put them on sale.
They did. I'm not sure if they're going to sort of release them every year as kind of like hey, Goddesses happen.
I don't remember how much they were. But if they do again.
I feel like it wasn't ridiculously priced.
It wasn't. I didn't think about it last year. If they do it again, just saying. Because the rings are cool.
Maybe we should get one each and then we can be the
Goddesses be the Stardom Road
podcast champions.
The Stardom Road team.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tam.
You get to be Tam, I get to be Arisa. Agreed.
I'm world champion. That's pretty cool. And you're injured.
Which is pretty factual in life.
I wasn't going to say anything. Anyways, they would go on to lose their title match against Aphrodite, Sayaka Otani, and Utami Hayashishita.
A pretty good team.
Which is so funny because they weren't even as good as they are now back then.
Yeah. This was them still finding their way a little bit. And I think that them as a team really came together and helped them find their strengths. You know, they teamed quite early in both of their runs, but it was a very important team. And I mean, now, like, obviously there's a lot of story and lore behind that team. But even at the time, it was just, you saw them growing together, and that's so valuable. And obviously 2020, this is a time where you really needed the young stars to kind of step up. And I mean, you got that in this tournament. You know, look at the finalists. All 4 of them are either very young age-wise or just fresh into stardom, and then going up against Utami and Sayaka Otani.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to dive in. Never mind. I was going to dive into Saya and Utami. I'm not gonna, but they did.
That's a podcast in of itself.
That is. Let's just say they helped each other in so many different ways to become great like they are. All right. 2021. I remember this tournament very, very much. I watched this full thing. And this, of course, was the tournament of FWC. With Julia injured, the champions were not in the tournament, of course, similar to this year. But Natsupoi is injured, but that's not why they were in the tournament this year. Yeah. Weird how that works. But this was the FWC team. Hazuki had just come back, and she's teaming with Koguma. Obviously, they have been pretty much the best team in Stardom since this tournament. Like, I don't even know if that's a debate at this point.
No, in terms of like strength and longevity, I don't think you can argue it.
I think they've comfortably been the best team. They often get the best matches out of their opponents. They have the best New Eras match.
Yes.
To date, I think. They have a great title match against ALK, obviously, where they won the belts. But to get there, of course, they had to win the tournament. And the tournament teams were as followed. You had Azumi and Momo Watanabe, once again, winning a block. Again, you can see why it hurts that they never became champions. because they were dominant. They were perfect together. Like Azumi and Momo were perfect together. You had the heavy hitter and you had the speed. And speed and speed and speed, and just like it works so perfectly. It's why I love Utami and Azumi together. It's why I love Azumi being with the wrestlers like that because it's so different. Though I think she does do a really good job with Miyu Amasaki, all things considered.
It's a different role for her in the O2 line, but this is, I think, it definitely with a heavy alongside her. Not that Momo's a heavy, but she's a hard-hitting striker. It really highlights her. Not to mention the chemistry with Momo AZ or Momo Oz is just off the chain. Whether it's in the ring as a team or as opponents, they just know each other inside and out so well.
One day maybe. One day I'll get it. Momo's still 23. Just a reminder. Not crazy.
Azumi's even younger.
Yes. She's been around forever. We know. We have Mayu Utani and Rin Katakura, obviously. The daughter-in-law of Kensei Sasaki and Akira Okuno. I just wanted to toss that out there because I always think it's a fun little fact.
Yeah, living in Canada right now, right?
Yes, I believe she's pregnant. Last time I saw.
Congratulations.
Okay, well, if she's listening to this, that's pretty cool. We had Ruaka and Starlight Kid, who also finished with 7 points. A very strong showing for them, which again makes the Ruaka fate this year a little sad because she had done such a good job in back-to-back years in this tournament. We had Micah and Shuri teaming up.
Yep.
Mina Shirakawa and Tam teaming up once again. Lady C and Waka Tsukiyama. That was a team. Did Lady C use Waka in the swing? Is that what they did?
Yeah, I feel like that was picking
awesome.
A box. Yeah,
she would just throw Waka at people. It was great. They never won, but they were fun. Lady C's really good at being fun with her opponent.
Yeah, and these
tag team partners.
Tag tournaments really help highlight that because it's almost like serving the Fukigen Death role in the 5-star Grand Prix that she was in. It's giving you a little bit of comedy, a little bit more of a lighthearted match. And she's at her best when she can bounce off different people, both character-wise and in-ring. We see it this year, this year of the tournament with Waka Tsukiyama, and especially next year with Mai Sakurai. That pairing was just way better than it had any right to be. This highlights the best aspect of Lady C.
On the other side, we had Hazuki and Koguma, Sai Kamatani and Utami Hayashishita, Hameka and Natsupoi. Loved them. As my friend called them, Little Big Planet.
They didn't love each other during this tournament, though.
No, they did not. They had that was such a weird thing. We have Mai Sakurai and Nagi Sayaka.
Talk about weird things.
Yes. Fugi Death and Saki Kashima, and then Hanan and Arena. As you can imagine, they work really well together. Kidding, by the way. The final night was crazy of this tournament because they had to have a tiebreaker between Utami, Saya, and then Hazuki and Koguma, which ultimately resulted in Hazuki and Koguma wrestling 3 different matches. And the change up here, of course, was that Momo Oz wrestled the match before the finals when they were able to take out Mayu and Rin Katakura, which I believe their team name was Blue Marine.
It was.
Which I liked. I liked that. I liked them together. They were very good together.
I think it was a really good highlight for Rin. Mayu at this point is able to take a little bit of a back seat, take on the mentoring role, and sort of help Rin sort of find herself because she's a really good wrestler, but I think sometimes struggled with the character stuff. But alongside Mayu, I think it definitely helped highlight her.
And in the final, one of the best finals in tournament history, it was the FWC team of Suzuki and Koguma defeating Momo Oz. And as we know, Hazuki and Koguma would go on to win the tag team titles, defeating ALK, ending the great reign of ALK, which was pretty much, over as is because Julia was hurt for so long. But, I loved ALK. They were so much fun. Their tag league run would have been insane.
Yeah, and it was fascinating seeing Donna Del Mondo skirt around the primary team so much.
Yeah, I mean, they could have done Mahime if they wanted to, but
well, they would the next year. But yeah, like not doing Shuri Julia in the tournament is surprising, and not doing Mahime more often. But I do wonder if that was partly to protect them more.
We had a lot of teams in this tournament in 2022. Of course, this was won by 7-Up Nanai, Takahashi, and you.
There's your fourth person.
Yes, it was for those wondering at home. Nanai was the fourth of the four to win this tournament twice, all with different partners. So it was Nanai, Momo, Yokobito, and Kairi Hojo.
Pat yourselves on the back if you knew that.
Yeah.
And if you didn't, pat yourself on the back anyways because you tried.
One of my favorite things is that no team has ever won twice.
Yeah.
But
it does make you wonder if we see that change at some point.
FWC would be a good choice. Just saying.
It's very possible.
Them versus Sayori and Natsupoi. Wouldn't say no to that. Anyways, that's too current. I know. It's too current. Let's get to the other side. So the standings were as followed. You had 7-Up, Nanai, Takahashi, and you getting 11 points. FWC, Hazuki, and Koguma getting 10. Mahime getting 10. The New Eras. I know everyone was waiting for that one. Getting 9. BMI 2000, which was a very bright spot in this tournament. I thought this was the beginning of Natsuko Tora really finding herself again post-injury. Yep. Teaming with Raka, who really helped carry that team. Raka had some great performances as part of this duo. Azumi and Miyu Amasaki of O2 line. This is when we got to see Miyu Amasaki really start to put things together. I'm very excited for their tournament this year for that because I think she's a lot better now as is, and it'll be a good way to let them do that. We had Mina Shirakawa, which ultimately turned into Waka Tsukiyama, of course, when Mina's face got broken by the knee of Saya Kamatani. Worked out, I hear, for Mina in the end. And Saki. So they didn't go with a Colors team. They went with a mixture of Cosmic Angels and Colors. Remember when Colors was in Stardom?
Yeah. Remember when they were a part of Cosmic Angels? Just like it was a faction of like 7 people.
Yeah. I'll just say this. We now have the best version of Cosmic Angels in present day.
The workhorse angels, as you refer to them.
The workhorse angels and Tam. I mean, the matches are great because Tam will get in there. She'll hit some like hard forearms and suplexes, and she'll get right out. It's like that is a real worker right there. She's like, Yuna, you do all the work, and then I'll do cool things, and then I'll tag you back in. It's exactly how I want all main eventers to wrestle from now on, especially after all the injuries recently. Like, just follow the Tam method sometimes, folks. It works.
I mean, she's the most popular wrestler in Stardom, so clearly it works.
Tam does a lot of things right. I'll give her that credit. She does. My Tam jabs are always for fun. I do like Tam, but it's too funny because I know some people listen to this that love Tam, so it's like, let me give you a few pokes here and there. And then you have Winnie
clearly, like you poke at Jungle Kiana every chance too, and
Oh, I actually don't like Jungle Kiana. That's not true. No, I don't actually have an opinion on Jungle Kiana. She has some cool matches. That Momo match is pretty good.
I know you're going to follow this up with the one she lost.
I was not actually that. That was really good, though. I like the Mayu Itani match, the championship match that she lost, as she should have.
I mean, hindsight 2020, sure, but...
Hindsight 2020, a great decision. She didn't win that match. And then on the other side, you had Aphrodite. Sorry, back to your regularly scheduled programming. On the other side, you had the Red Goddess block. It was Aphrodite, Utami Hayashishita, and Saya Kamatani winning the block. Meltier, Tam Nakano, and Natsupoi finishing second. Black Desire, Momo Watanabe, and Starlight Kid, obviously a favorite of mine. Karate Brave. Oh, I miss Karate Brave. Shuri and Tomoki Naba. Mafia Bella. They were badass. Julian Tekla. Peach Rock. Mayu Itani and Momokogo. I know a lot of people love that team. Just one of the best names in history. We love Tokyo Sports. Saki Kashima and Fuki Death. And then My Fair Lady, who did a great job. Mai Sakurai.
You want to talk about great names in tag history. My Fair Lady is right up there.
Oh My Julia's there too.
Mm-hmm.
That one's really good. That one's really good. It's like
honestly, this is one of my favorite things about when they just throw all these different people into teams. It's fun seeing what names they come up with because there is some true gems.
No one's better than Eye Contact this year. Just saying. Shout out the Eye Contact. Or Eye Contact. which is fun. But yes, the finals, of course, were Nanai and Yu defeating Utami and Sayakamatani in a really strong final. And as we know, Nanai and Yu would go on to defeat Meltier at Dream Queendom and then lose those belts in a countout.
On the biggest show in Stardom history.
On the biggest show in Stardom history.
This tag league, like the final couple of nights, they did orchestrate this wonderfully because there was so much question over who was going to advance. Because you look at like especially the which block at the blue block, you had 7-Up, FWC, My Hime, and New Eras and BMI 2000 all like right within the hunt and all viably going through, and you could make cases for just about all of them. Ruark and Natsuko Tora was probably a long shot, but like they'd done so well as a team. But any of those people you could have easily explained through. And on the other side, Aphrodite, Meltier, Black Desire, like they are all really right in the hunt as well and viable finalists. So full credit to making the end of this tournament just a wonderful what if and who could go through.
What are we going to do to get Karate Brave back?
Well, I guess it depends when Tomoka Naba's not wearing a mask and in New York or Miami.
That's okay. We got Azusa now. It's fine.
Would be fun to see Shuri take on Azusa in a similar situation, but
oh my god, Azusa might be like the greatest of all time when she gets like to a normal age. If that happens, because she's really good now. She's really good now at 15 years old, and
once she's legally allowed to drive,
yeah, she might be in the Suzu range by then. Anyways, so that is your full tournament. We kind of highlighted some of the teams we like, but we'll go back. Obviously, Dream Shine's the obvious one. I think if you talk to anyone that was watching Stardom back then or has gone back to watch Stardom, that is kind of the fun one. It helps that they won, obviously, and highlights them a little bit more. In terms of like normal full-time teams, Thunder Rock, doesn't get much better than Thunder Rock.
Yoko Bito, Kairi.
Yoko Bito and Kairi. Momo Oz.
Yes. I was going to say Nanai and Kairi were wonderful as well in the early years.
Nanai and you were great. They were a really good team. I like 7-Up. I don't think anyone would call them their favorites, but they did do great work as a duo.
A lot of great matches when they had their very short run with Stardom. Was only about 5 months as a team, but
it ended on a sour note. So I think a lot of people changed their minds on it. But
it's unfortunate that people remember that match as kind of what they're all about because it's not a good example of how good they were as a team.
Yeah. Blue Marine was great. I thought they were a fun team because, at that time, Stars was having a rough time. Like they just rebuilt itself really quick, and Mayu was like, hello?
Rin came in and gave him an extra body during the Oedo Thai Wars. It didn't help, but she was there.
And I think the fun part about the Goddesses Tag League, even like when people look at this year's, I know like not as many people are as excited. But I think there's a lot of things to like about the tournament. I think obviously the return of FWC again is great, because they're just so good. You have Micah and Megan Bain, which is a very intriguing duo. You have Suzu Suzuki and Mei Sarah, who might be the best tag team going right now in Stardom that's in the tournament, because Sayori and Natsupoi are not in the tournament, obviously. You have Prominence returning, Risa Sarah and Kurumi Hiragi. Kurumi Hiragi, obviously, was maybe the highlight of the Triangle Derby earlier this year. So should be great to see that duo back together. We'll get to see them versus Suzu and Mei Sarah, which should be very interesting.
And against Julia.
And against Julia. It's always Julia.
I also want to shout out the Natsuko Tora Momo Watanabe team because obviously Oedo Tai had to do some shuffling about with the Starlight Kid injury. This is a really good team. We've seen them work together before and they work together wonderfully, but this is peak Natsuko Tora. And we saw in the 5-star Grand Prix Momo Watanabe, when she turns it on, she is one of the very best.
That is the truth. That is the truth. I think, looking back at this tournament, I think they've just always done such a good job at creating exciting situations, especially come the last night. Past 2 years, they've done really good. Creating the tiebreaker 2 years ago between two of the top teams in the entire company. Last year, like you highlighted, it could pretty much be won by anyone.
Yeah.
Even if I think a lot of people assume 7-Up, you didn't really know for sure, which is always nice. And then you go back more, 2020, Momoaz gets the win there. You have to go far back after that if you want to avoid Bea Priestley, because she was there forever. But even so, I think Bea Priestley and Jamie Hayter were a fun duo.
That was the tournament that really brought them together, and you saw how good they became because they eventually became tag champions and were really good together. And it was a shame that was cut short by COVID because Jamie Hayter was really starting to find herself as a wrestler, and that was Bea Priestley took her a couple of years to really become a strong mainstay in Stardom. But once she did, she was a very strong hand, and I think arguably better as a tag team wrestler.
I think you're absolutely right. And other than that, I think, again, you can go out through the history and see like growing points for certain duos, rivalries. Obviously, like we just talked about with Saida and Hanan of all teams. We saw them in this tournament and where they are now. I know it's just the new blood tags, but still tag team belts,
Oh, for sure.
Still something they absolutely earned together. What is one match you think anyone listening to this should see from the history of the Goddesses of Stardom tournament?
That's a tough one. Because I'll be honest, like the Goddess matches generally don't stand out as much in like history to me.
Sure.
It's like your 5-star Grand Prix. But honestly, I would honestly just go back and watch the final night from last year. Because like the beautiful thing about the tournament kind of settings is that unpredictability and intrigue. It's all well and good just highlighting a single match, but when you're talking about especially tournament settings, seeing the full story around each matches, because they were really good matches too on that final night, like obviously stacked and telling the story, but it came together wonderfully. You watch that final night, you get the storytelling coming through and the heartbreak of the wrestlers who were in contention but fell short and had the chance to advance but maybe didn't quite put it together. Other than that, it would be the final from 2020, Momo Oz versus Mayu and Starlight Kid. Not surprising given the four that were involved, but it was just an absolutely tremendous match, even by their standards.
You say Mayu and Starlight Kid?
Yes.
In 2020?
Yeah, the year Momo Oz won. It wasn't the final, sorry. It was the... to advance to the final. It was on the final night.
Okay. Yes, that was a great match. Sorry, I thought you said final. I was like, they weren't.
I did, but it was the final.
Didn't I just say it? Well, yeah, no, you're right. I think going back to final nights is really your best bet because those final nights are great. I'd recommend the 2021 final night and watch FWC's final night. I think those three performances back to back to back are just incredible. Obviously the final just being absolute killer with Momo Oz. And then you get that Aphrodite like sprint match because it's just like it's right after they already wrestled. They're trying like let me get the time on that actually because I remember it being like just craziness. And the beauty really of Hazuki and Koguma obviously in that spot is how they wrestle. Yeah, it was 5 minutes and 27 seconds. right after Saya and Tommy went 9:54. Hazuki and Koguma made easy work of We Love Tokyo Sports, but it's fine.
Part of the storytelling and part of protecting having to wrestle 3 matches in a single night.
Yeah,
there's a reason why they don't do tiebreakers that often.
They wrestled 15 minutes and 28 seconds later that night. While Momoaz went 13-13 the match before. So again, I think added up, they still wrestled longer than Hazuki and Koguma. But yeah, go watch that. Go watch those. I think the Goddess of Stardom Tag League. It's a fun thing to go back and check out. It's not like you don't need to go check out every match. If you're looking to get yourself up on history of the tournament, check out the finals. I think the finals are always your best bet to get a grasp of the tournament. Final nights too, if you want to see how the teams got there. That's always a good option as well.
This tournament is sort of more one you follow as it's happening, I think. You're not going to get the same history with the 5-star or even the Cinderella tournament. But in terms of getting quality tag wrestling, it is nice just getting like solid batch of fun teams, really strong teams, that kind of mix, and sometimes finding pairings that you didn't think were going to be amazing and they just come together in such a way, because it is a little bit experimental sometimes. Not always are these established teams, but like coming back to it a couple of years later, you're like, oh yeah, this is where they started, this is where they found their groove as a team.
It's and there's always some really, really great matches in these. They're not as common as, say, the 5-star Grand Prix, but if you know what the top teams are, there's your best bet, because they go out there to show up. Yeah. Or if there's a cork in,
it's always in the shadow of the 5-star Grand Prix a bit, because it's similar tournaments, but it's happening straight after, basically. It's easy to kind of go, okay, I'll pay vague attention to it, but you are rewarded if you follow through.
Yeah. If you want to watch a whole run, watch Dream Shine. You're welcome.
Yeah, anyway. I mean, you don't get many chances to see them together, so make the most of it.
That's the bulk of their run as a duo. Anyways, this was the Stardom Road podcast. Trent, tell the people where they can find you, what you got going on, anything else.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter /X at OneUpCulture. Nothing in particular to plug right now, just the usual. If you like what Scott and I do together, be sure to listen to Ocean Cyclone Show along with Ryan. That's always a lot of fun. Most recent one was a history of like getting into Joshi. If you are a newer fan, curious about the different promotions and how to deep dive in. So that's a really kind of helpful episode compared to our normal ones where we're just being idiots and having fun.
Is that released yet?
It comes out just after, like, later this week. So if you're listening to this as it drops, it'll be coming out this weekend. Otherwise, it'll be out. And ChocoCast once a month covering Gatto Move, and Choco Pro, both on the Wrestling Podcast Network.
I think I said this last time, but I think it's so funny that we say Twitter and X. Because, think about it, like, in the idea of this podcast.
Yeah.
Think about where that is going to be in 2 years.
The reality is in 2 years, you won't be able to find me. I'm going to be a hermit in a cave. So make the most of your opportunities.
Well, I guess we know when the Stardom Road's ending, folks. You can find me on Twitter /X at Scotty Wrestling on Twitter. Sorry, that's rephrased in my head. I've said that so many times on so many other podcasts. I don't usually say the first part. But yeah, at Scotty Wrestling. In terms of work, I have 5-star Grand Prix review up on the Fight Game Media YouTube channel, if that floats your boat. That's it. That's it. I'm tired, folks. I am officially tired. I have very little drive right now for the first time in a very long time. So taking a little break.
It's understandable. You have to deal with me for 90 minutes.
That's not even this, though. This is a late podcast, so that probably plays in part of how I'm doing lately. But anyways, we'll be back next time with Trent. Let him know.
So because it's in October and we're close to Halloween.
He's so excited. He's literally.
I am so excited because one of my favorite things in Stardom was the costume change battle royal and the mask fiestas. What we're going to do is we're going to take these two wonderful little aspects of Stardom, we're going to bring them together, and I'm going to tell you all about them. They didn't happen for that long. It's a couple of years for each, but there was a source of amazing amounts of joy, and it's a bit of history. Who knows if they're going to do them again? Please do them again. If Rossi, if you're listening, do the costume change battle royal again. But we were going to bring it to you ahead of Halloween. So wear a costume. I don't know, dress up as your favorite Stardom wrestler. Don't send pics, but, dress up as your favorite wrestlers and listen to the costume change battle royal Mask Fiesta combo.
If we had a video for this podcast, we would be dressed for it. Just know that.
It would be a Patreon exclusive.
It'd be very funny though. I already have it. I already have my idea in mind. But yes, that'll be our next podcast. So if you want to come around for just a fun little time, that's the one. Otherwise, we're done here. For Trent, I'm Scott, and this was the Stardom Road podcast on the Count Out Podcast Network. See ya.
Hi guys, this is Lauren.
This is Michael.
And this is Your Dose of Death podcast. If you're genuinely curious about the world of deathmatch wrestling, look no further, as me and Mike have you covered on all things in the world of deathmatch wrestling, whether it's
interviews,
show reviews, or everything in between. We have you covered on all things deathmatch wrestling, whether it's past, present, or future. And you're probably wondering where you can go support us. You can find Your Dose of Death podcast on all major podcast platforms, especially along with the Count Out network of podcasts. And also, you can support us on the Count Out Patreon, as we have exclusive content only on the Patreon for all of our listeners. We hope that you go listen to Your Dose of Death podcast very soon.
And see you at the shows.
This has been a Count Out Podcast.